Welcome to Sticks Tricks. I am Sticks. Today, we're doing a how-to slash do-it-yourself on the lower control arm thrust arm bushings in your 981 Porsche vehicle. I am focusing on the front of the vehicle, the front lower control arm thrust arm bushings. And in this video, you're going to learn about the tools you'll need, the process I used on how to do this, and you'll be able to see just hands-on how I did it as well. This is a 2013 Boxster S. It is a 6-speed manual, and it does have snow tires on it. I live in New England. I drive it year-round. It's a blast. But first, let's get into what we're going to need for the tools. Excuse the messy garage and work table, but I do have the tools laid out that you will need, or at least the tools that I used to make the job go smoothly. First, let's talk about quick the bushing situation. So I already did the driver's side of the vehicle. This is the factory bushing you're removing, and then these are the solid bushings you would be installing, or at least these are the ones I used. If you want to put in a factory bushing or a different style that needs to be pressed in, you can still use this video. But in this video, I'm pressing out the factory one with a special tool I'll talk about. And then these, they fit perfectly. They're very tight tolerance, but you can just barely get them in, push them in by hand. And that's how they're supposed to be. Once this gets torqued down in the control arm, then it locks in place. And for the front of the vehicle, with these solid Tarot Engineering bushings, you will need these spacers, and I believe their kit comes with them. I ordered the wrong part number at first, so these came without the spacers, which I believe is for the rear of the vehicle, and then to use them on the front, you just need their spacers. This is enough for one side of your car. You would need 4 of these and 4 of these if you're doing both sides. I already installed one set in the car because I wanted to have this bushing out to kind of show you what it looks like and talk about it just briefly. So this is a hydraulically charged or hydraulic fluid-filled bushing. There's a cavity in here that has the hydraulic fluid in it, and I was autocrossing one day, as that's what I do frequently in the summer months with the car, and this bushing actually, the hydraulic fluid escaped. It burst, and there was fluid all over my front wheel. I thought I had a brake fluid leak from the caliper, and then I found the bottom of this bushing was saturated with oil, and did some research, and that's why I'm doing this. I also want the caster setting of the alignment to be more consistent with the hard driving and just have the car be more agile and responsive. And I thought this upgrade was a no-brainer, especially with my bushing losing its fluid. So just know that can happen. It doesn't happen to most people, as I really couldn't find much about it online, but it did happen to me, and it's something to keep in mind. My car has 65,000 miles on it, and it is a 2013. But enough talk about the bushings. Let's talk about the tools now. And this video will have chapters. If you're tired of hearing me talking about this, look at the chapters of the video and just skip to whatever you want to see. That's what the video is here for. But if you want to listen to me talk, thank you, and I guarantee you it might help. But anyways, impact wrench. This makes the job a lot easier. The factory nut and bolt that you remove are torqued to 160 Newton meters, and it would be a lot to break loose by hand. This does it with no problem, as well as just getting your wheels off. 19 millimeter socket for your wheels, and then a 21 millimeter socket for the factory nut and bolt. They are 21 millimeter, so you will need a 21 millimeter wrench, which I used this one, so I could counter hold and get that bolt off. You'll also need the torque wrench to torque the bolt as well as torque the wheels back on the car. And now let's talk about this specialty tool right here. This is made by Elephant Racing, and it's a press tool to press the factory bushing out of the arm, as well as you can use it to press a new bushing back in. I just went for the solid Tarot bushing option because it's a really good product from my research, and it's easy to install. You don't have to press it in, which is a bonus. So all these items in this specialty tool, they will be linked in the description. I have no affiliation with these companies. I'm just using them now for the first time. But this tool was worth its weight in gold. You don't have to remove the arm, any arm from the car or anything like that. It made it super easy. The first side doing this the first time for me took me a half hour, and that included getting the car up on a jack stand. So Yeah, must-have tool here. This video will only work if you have this tool because that's what I'm going to be using. And then the nuts on this are 22 millimeters, so I have two 22 millimeter wrenches. If you have a 22 millimeter wrench that is ratcheting, that will speed up the process, but you want something nice and long to get good leverage because it does take quite a bit of torque to first get the bushing to start moving in the car. And the rest of these items are kind of optional. Hammer for just a trick to get the bushing to move, which I'll show you in this video. PB Blaster, I like putting some around the bushing because as it starts to move with the tool, it does make a difference with having it move more freely once it starts to seep in there. I did put a little bit of anti-seize on the center of the bolt where it goes through the center of the bushing because these bushings are aluminum, and the steel bolt, when it goes through aluminum, there's always a chance for some of the corrosion that can happen. Maybe you're familiar with the Audi pinch bolt on the front suspension. It's because it's a steel bolt through an aluminum upright and it just welds itself in there with corrosion. I don't foresee that happening here, but I just put a little bit of anti-seize in the middle, just here, not on the threads where the nut goes, just in the middle. That's just because I'm kind of meticulous. You don't have to be. A little pick because there is a aero shield that directs air on the brakes connected to the thrust arm, or the arm that connects to here. So I use this to disconnect that just to move it around a bit more to have more access. And lastly, a pair of cutters and a couple zip ties. Sometimes these on the bottom of the control arm, when you're putting them in, it'll tend to fall out depending on how the fit is or how much corrosion is in your arm. So this is just a trick to zip tie these in the control arm while you get the thrust arm back over them. I'll talk about this more in the video, but if you have this, it's going to make your life a lot easier, especially if you're doing this solo like I did. And that's it regarding the tools and my kind of ranting explanation there. But now you need to get the car in the air. In my personal garage, I just use a jack stand and jack, so I guess I should have mentioned that would be a helpful tool to have. Either way, whether you're working on a lift or the single jack and jack stand, you just need to get this corner, whatever corner you're working on, you just need to get that up in the air, which I'm going to do now, and remove the wheel. That is the first step. And now with the wheel off, I've got a light propped up in there. Let me quickly show you how I got the car in the air. I've just got a jack stand on the factory reinforced area where you put like a lift pad on. I usually work on a 2-post lift at my friend's garage, but in my personal garage, this is what I do in a pinch just to get one of the sides of the car up. And this is going to irritate some people, make some people mad, but hey, this is the way I do it. In here, I just have a little bit of wood on my jack, and you can see some of the wood broke actually. But these cars are so stiff and the pinch welds are so strong, I do a little bit of rubber or wood on my jack, just on the pinch weld next to the jack point. And I've never seen like a dent or any damage to the pinch weld. These cars are very light and stiff, like I said. It gets it up just enough where I can get the jack stand there. That's what I did. You don't have to do it that way. If you don't like how I did it, that's fine. Just make sure your car's in the air safely so you can live to work another day or live to drive it after this awesome upgrade. Now looking in the work area where we're going to actually be turning a wrench, we've got the lower control arm right here. And then right here, that is the nut on the bolt, which the head of the bolt is right there under the control arm. This is going through the bushing that we're going to be pressing out. And first, what you want to do is remove this nut and bolt. I put my impact on the bottom because there's no room on the top. So I put my impact on the bottom, put a wrench on the top, and remove that. And just make sure that when you reinstall it, the nut's on the top. So I like to thread it in and just place it on the ground so it's easy to see. And now, as I've mentioned, you're going to pull the arm this way. And actually, you might need that hammer to get it to move in the beginning. Sometimes if you give it a little wiggle, there we go. give a little wiggle, kind of break the little bit of maybe corrosion. And now when pushing it down, keep in mind the other side of this arm is a ball joint, so it also twists. And this control arm, it's not perfectly flat where it goes, but if you make sure to twist it, kicking this that way, kind of give it a twist, and you're going to want to kind of hold it, twisting it like that, and then slide it down. Sometimes you can pull the rotor and caliper this way a little bit with this arm disconnected now. You have a little bit of room doing that. But now what I'm going to do, because the rest of the way is going to be too tough, is I'm going to get in the car and turn the ignition on to turn the wheel just slightly to the right. If you're working on the left side or the driver's side, you're going to want to turn it to the left. But now, to get that little bit of last bit away, that's all I'm going to do, and it's going to slip down very easily. So now that I turned it just a little bit, keep in mind, just make sure you don't have like tools or whatever else around here getting in the way if you're going to turn the wheel. But now the wheel turned, check this out. There we go. You can see that, it just slipped down, and now it's fully out of the way. We can start working on the bushing. And on this side, I don't know if you can see it on camera, one of the, I disconnected the inner, or I think I did, maybe I didn't. Anyways, these are the little clips you can disconnect, so then when you're moving it around, it'll flex more and maybe prevent it from breaking. Okay, I hope I have a good angle for you here. Here's our Elephant Racing tool. Make sure to grease the threads liberally. It's a little oily when you get it from them, but grease the heck out of this because that will keep it spinning smoothly and you're less likely to damage or strip out any of these threads. And this tool works phenomenally. We're about to use it, but I did use it once already, and the tolerances and the grade of the metal, it's phenomenal. It worked flawlessly. So some of these can be so hit or miss, or I've had that happen in the past, and this one is really good. It's worth the money. What we're gonna do is pull this bushing down into this bigger cup in the control arm, out of the control arm. So we can see here, this goes right over it, and it goes right up against the control arm. And our upper one, which I'm trying not to block the camera here with my arm, but the upper one goes just on that outer, I want to say race like a bearing, but whatever the outer section is of the bushing, so it only presses on the bushing, and this will get pulled all the way through the arm. It fits perfectly. It's a phenomenal tool. But now we're gonna have the nut and the washer. We'll put our tool on there. It's a good idea even to put grease on the washer so the nut can spin over that easily. And now what we're gonna do is insert this through the bushing. It'll come up through this piece with the washer on it here, just like that. And I mean, I leave most of the threads down here, so it's easier to get something on the nut up here. Gonna thread the nut on. So this is where, make sure everything is in the correct spot, kind of centered. It will kind of center itself. Now we're gonna get our wrenches here. So we're gonna get both of our 22mm wrenches. And we're gonna start getting tension on this. And what I like to do is spin the top one. Maybe you have a different technique. So as we start to get tension on this, this might be really hard to break loose at first. So what I'm gonna do is I just torqued a good amount of tension, and I'm gonna use a little PB blaster. Now I'm hoping the camera sees this enough. Just on the top, so the PB blaster gets around the edges of the bushing, so as the bushing starts to move a little bit, it'll start to work its way in there and just kind of help things move. So now that I've got a good amount of torque on there, it still hasn't broken loose. This is where you'll break these tools if you just manhandle this, so to speak, and just go crazy. And this is binding, it's gonna break, something's gonna strip. So what I like to do is once you get a lot of torque on it, I have a dead blow. Having like a metal hammer would probably be better to get some more frequency ringing through this, but give this some wax. what I like to do is give it some wax right there. You may agree, you may not agree with that. That's perfectly fine. We all have our own opinions here. But in the past, I've found that giving it some wax as you tighten it really does help to break it loose initially. Because sometimes while you've got the tension on it, it will help break it loose. So now I'm gonna really give it some beans, and you're gonna hear a loud pop when it starts to initially move. There it goes. This is where having the longer wrenches are really what you're gonna need. It is very easy to turn. You could get a ratchet with a 22mm on here now, or get your 22mm wrench. And what I'm gonna do is put a little more PB Blaster in here, or you could use WD-40 or whatever you want. And commence the time lapse, because I'm done talking about this and I'm sure you're done hearing it. And now you can see I've switched to turning the bottom and holding the top. Once it's broken loose and there's not a ton of torque required, I kind of like doing it this way because it goes faster. You can get more angle in your turn. And now when you get to the point where this top section of the tool starts to go in the control arm, just make sure it's going in the control arm. If this gets hard to turn all of a sudden, back it off and center this, because you don't want to damage your control arm by trying to pull this through not square and not lined up. But this is still going very easily. And you're gonna just turn this until literally this falls out, because it pulls the bushing all the way out. And that is all there is to it. And there it goes. So now I'll show you, we'll take this off. And we can actually see the bushing slides right out. And actually the tool did drag the side a little bit, but it looks like the tool took a little bit of damage. And if I clean out here, yeah, the control arm is nice and smooth inside. Of course, something that minor, a little bit of scrapes, it's not gonna make too much of a difference. And now with that out, we've got our solid bushing here. And you can see the bottom one, it fits perfectly, very tightly, but it does slide right out. So what we're gonna do is get the top one in. And the top one, because of the little bit of corrosion, there we go. The top one can be a little more tricky to get in. We're gonna put that one in, and this is where you get your zip tie. And pull this through like this, slot it in. Really sorry if I'm blocking what I'm doing, but pretty much you're gonna zip tie this in like so to hold it in, because if you put this arm back over this without the bushing in there, like, you're not going to get the bushing in there, is what I'm trying to say. So the bushing needs to be in there first, and the spacers that go on these can go on after. Now, once again, make sure to twist the arm like kind of like that. And what we're probably going to have to do is turn the wheel again. All right, now that I turn the wheel, there we go. I pushed a little bit on the caliper to move this. And now with the arm over it, we're gonna slice the zip tie. Pull that out. And then we've got our nice machined spacers here. And that was very unexpected. That rolled away pretty far. I'm gonna go find that. So I take back what I said. You do not need to use my stupid zip tie trick. I guess with the arm all the way down, but in place, there is enough room to get this in, so I'll let you find that out just as I did. And now getting the bottom one in place. Like I said, you may choose to not put anti-seize on it. I'm not putting anti-seize on the part of the threads that get torque applied to them, so it won't affect the torque reading on it, but I am just putting it on the areas that go through the aluminum bushing. That is up to you if you want to do that. So first, how I did it on the other side is we'll get it through the spacer and then get it up into the bushing here, which this can be kind of a pain just because of the arm, with how the arm kind of articulates. And then once you get it close, there we go, then you can slip this in. It's a very tight tolerance. Once again, you might have to pull on the arm a little bit, kind of pull on it like this, slip it right in there. Don't be a dum-dum. After I fought with the spacer a little bit, I realized I had the bolt in there just too far. I pulled the bolt out a little bit and the spacer, the upper spacer, went right in. It's not threaded in there, it just helps it get up there easier with the tension it's on the arm. You'll spin your top nut on there, and then I'm gonna get my 21, turn down my impact a little bit because I want to get it close to the torque with the impact, and then use the actual torque wrench. And then we'll get our 21 on top here. And then, there we go. Now I've noticed the top wrench stopped moving, so I'm not going to put my hands on it. And that's 160 Newton meters. Now, what we want to check is our shield up here. If you're fighting the shield, I just discovered this little tab is not in. So these tabs should go into a recess on the control arm. That is why I was fighting it. So check that these tabs are in, and then you can secure the clips around back. And now let's take a look at how beautiful this bushing looks in here. Looks great. I love the red, matches the caliper. You can see the spacers in there. Hope the camera focused on that good. So now all that's left is putting that tire back on, getting the car on the ground, and going for a fun drive to make sure everything is operating as it's supposed to. This bushing will help keep the caster in check under heavy braking and acceleration, which in autocross racing, you're doing that over and over, braking, accelerating, accelerating. So I anticipate a nice improvement there. Obviously, getting rid of these hydraulically charged bushings will be a big improvement because one of them already had burst, like I said, and let out the fluid all over my wheel as I was driving and racing. And then the other one, I'm sure, was pretty close behind it. But anyways, I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please leave a like, and I appreciate you subscribing. If you have any other questions about this, leave a comment below. I'll do my best to reply. So this has been Stix on the Stix Tricks channel. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your day or evening or morning.